Alright, in this video I'm going to be repairing this 2009 Apple MacBook Air. Now I actually got this machine off eBay for only $27 and it was of course in non-working condition. Now for those of you who aren't aware, this is the 2009 model MacBook Air. However, the original model, which looks exactly the same as this, came out in 2008. Now the only difference between the two models is actually the North Bridge and the CPU. The original model used an Intel 965 North Bridge with Intel GMA X3100 integrated graphics, and it had a Core 2 Duo. I'm not sure the actual model number, but I believe it was a MRAM based Core 2 Duo processor. This model, being the 2009 model, has an nVidia North Bridge with the nVidia GeForce 9400M integrated graphics, as well as a Penryn Core 2 Duo CPU. Now with this model, unlike the original model, you can actually upgrade this to the latest version of macOS 10, whereas the original model is limited to macOS 10 Lion or OS 10 Mountain Lion with some modifications. So I'm pretty happy this was the 09 model. Now, what was wrong with this machine, or at least what it said in the listing, was that the, quote, what did they say? They said they said the, quote, visual chip was bad, the Wi-Fi was bad, and there was no LCD panel installed in the machine. Now, one of those three issues was actually correct. There was indeed no LCD panel installed in the machine. However, the other two issues, the visual chip as they called it, and the Wi-Fi card, actually work perfectly fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the machine now. Now, I have gotten a replacement panel already installed to the machine, so it's not screwed in yet, so I'm going to flip the machine over before opening it so the panel doesn't fall out. And I'm actually going to remove the bottom panel, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But let me go ahead and open up the machine if I can. It's quite difficult to do with one hand. Alright, let's go ahead and open it up. And you can see the new panel installed right there. So you can see at the bottom where the LVDS cable connects to it. And yeah, that is the only cable that does actually connect to it. So let me just go ahead and power it on. I'll go ahead and turn off the light before I do so. Alright. Let me go ahead and power it on, and it does still have an issue, and you will see that when I turn it on. So it appears to be even worse this time. I think it's because I severed some wires in it. But anyway, the issue was the LVDS cable is actually bad. So you can see it right here, and it does, I'll go ahead and show you this in more detail in a minute, but it does actually have some severed wires inside it, and I had pulled it up a little bit just to look at them, and I think it completely severed the black backlight cable. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take the LCD panel apart, or take the LVDS cable out, and actually try to repair it. I'm going to actually try to solder the individual wires back together, and I'm going to show you that the issue with it in just a minute. Let me just go ahead and pause the video here and shut the machine off, because as you can see it is still running, and I'll go ahead and resume the video. Alright, so I've gotten the machine turned off, and as you can see I unplugged the LVDS cable. Now if you look in it, I'm not sure if it'll focus in well enough, but you can obviously see that some wires have indeed been severed. So you can see in there. Not focusing very well, but yeah, it's quite obviously severed. So I don't know if this is going to work or not. It probably won't, but I am indeed going to try to take this out and try to repair it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. These machines are quite difficult to repair. You have to pretty much take out this entire logic board and hard disk assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera and just resume the video once I get the LCD panel off and the LVDS cable removed. So I'll resume the video once I'm done. Alright, so I'm currently working on the LVDS connector, or the LVDS cable I should say, and after further inspection, only 2 wires are actually broken. You can see them right there. These white and red wires right there. But however, what had happened was a lot of the wires in here were severed. They weren't completely cut, but the insulation was kind of severed off. So what I did, now I don't know how this will fit in the machine, I hope it does, but I've been taking electrical tape and wrapping each individual severed cable to keep them insulated from one another. So this is extremely tedious work, and it requires a very small amount of electrical tape. So basically what I've been doing to get it in there is I've been putting a piece on the end of a multimeter probe, sticking the point underneath the wire I want to tape up, and then I hold the tape and pull the probe out so it releases from the tape. And then I just go ahead and wrap the wire with the electrical tape. And that actually seems to be working quite well so far. I currently only have 2 to do, and then I got to solder these wires back together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and update you once I'm finished. So I'll be right back. Alright, so it's been a while since the last clip I made on this machine, but in the last clip you saw, I was attempting to repair the LVDS cable that came in this machine and was severed. Now, I attempted to do so, and I thought I had done it correctly, but when I plugged it into the machine to test it, it actually almost killed it. So basically what happened was, I plugged in the cable to the LCD, plugged it into the machine, and then attempted to power the machine on. Now as soon as the machine chimed, it immediately shut off. So I turned it on again, and it did the same thing again. So I knew something was, of course, wrong with the cable. So since that clip was made, it's been about a week, and I have ordered and received a brand new LCD assembly. Well, not brand new, but the panel is brand new, but the actual assembly is new, and it was actually cheaper than just buying the LVDS cable alone, which was quite interesting. So went ahead and got it, and yeah, it's now a fully functioning machine. Oh, and what happened was what happened to the logic board was the backlight fuse had blown because I guess it was shorted from that cable I attempted to repair. And so basically what I ended up doing, unfortunately I had to do this because there's really nothing else I could have done practically. I just basically just took my soldering iron and just made a solder blob over the entire fuse just to bypass it. I know you shouldn't really do that, but it happened because of the shorted cable, and I know this cable's good, so I don't really see a need of keeping it there, because A, it would have been nearly impossible to solder it on, and B, I don't really know where to get the part or what the specifications of that fuse are. So anyway, I went ahead and just bypassed it. While it's not the best thing to do, as I said, it does indeed work, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn the machine on now. Alright, so I'm holding down Option now. It does have an install on the hard drive already, so we'll go ahead and boot that. Now the install on this drive is actually somewhat corrupt, so I have to boot it in single user mode to bypass the file system check to actually get it to boot, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So it is indeed booting, as you can see. And basically at the prompt I just type /sbin/mount /uw// and then just type exit. And it boots up as normal, so we'll just wait for that to go. Alright, and it is running Snow Leopard. It is a Snow Leopard install, and as you can see, it is now booted. And it's not connected to my Wi-Fi for some reason, but that's nothing to worry about. So let's go into System Profiler here. You can see that the specifications are a 1.86 GHz Intel Core 2 Duo CPU. Of course, this is the NVIDIA base model, so it does have the NVIDIA GeForce 9400M integrated graphics card. And it also, if we go back into About This Mac, it also has 2 gigabytes of 1066 megahertz DDR3 memory soldered on. So unfortunately, that is non-upgradable memory, but for the age of this machine, that's about normal, and 2 gigabytes is still fairly usable, I guess. It's definitely not great, but it is usable, so that's nothing to worry about for me. I am going to be putting a Mountain Lion on this machine, so let me go ahead and close that. Just to show you something, let me just go ahead and open this hardware monitor application I downloaded, and we'll show you the temperatures of the system components. Alright, so if we just go ahead and look up here, you can see all the temperatures of the components in the system. Now you can see it doesn't run too incredibly hot for that tiny little heatsink inside. You can see that the hottest thing right now is the North Bridge, which is of course the NVIDIA chip with the graphics on it. The second hottest is of course the CPU, and then the rest are relatively cool. So yeah, it runs pretty well. It's actually not too bad. So I'll just go ahead and quit that. And yeah, it's a pretty decent machine for what it is, so I'm pretty happy I got it. It definitely works pretty well, and for $27, I really couldn't go wrong. Now, of course, I did pay a little bit for the LCD panel. I think I paid for about $40 for it in total. So yeah, that's unfortunately kind of expensive, but these machines usually go for around $200 to $300 on eBay. Even in non-working conditions, so I'm pretty sure, or I'm pretty glad, and I consider this a really, really good deal for what I got. So let me just go ahead and shut the machine down, and let me show you one thing I'm having a little issue with. So the machine pretty much went together perfectly fine, except for one little part. The display bezel was extremely hard to get on, and I got some adhesive for it, but it doesn't really work very well. You can see that both sides of the panel or of the bezel just pop out. I might try to put some more adhesive in there, but I don't know how to really fix that properly. But as you can see on the bottom there, it's kind of bulged out a little bit too, but I think that's just because of what's behind it. So, I mean, the adhesive I got was pretty much matching to the original, so I'm not sure why it's not really going on. I probably just need to clean the old adhesive off the magnesium frame inside the display assembly, but yeah, I'll probably do that sometime in the near future. But for now, the machine works perfectly fine, and a known defect on these machines actually are the hinges, and these seem to be doing okay. They're a little bit wobbly, as you can see, but they're definitely not terrible. So I think these should last a decent while. So that was the repair of this 2009 MacBook Air. Hope you enjoyed this video. Alright, so just some quick updates before I end this video. One of the things I did after I made the last part of the video you saw was I managed to get the LCD bezel to actually adhere a little bit better to the back part of the display assembly. You can see that it is still a little bit bulged out at some spots, specifically right here and a little bit down here as well. The top looks okay. It is still a little bit bulged out, especially on this side, but it's definitely a lot better than it was before. So yeah. The other thing that was giving me an issue was the hard disk in the machine. As you saw when I booted Snow Leopard, the only way I could get it to boot was to boot single user mode, mount the file system, and then continue the booting to bypass the file system check. Now, I originally thought the hard drive was bad because when I booted up into the Mountain Lion installer, Disk Utility wouldn't unmount the disk and wouldn't let me erase it or format it. So I couldn't install any other OS. So I found that kind of strange. I even tried through terminal, disk util, nothing. Nothing would unmount the disk and nothing could format it. So I went ahead and made a Ubuntu bootable USB drive and booted that on the system, formatted the drive to FAT32 using Ubuntu. Then I rebooted into OS 10, the OS 10 installer again, and sure enough it worked perfectly fine from then on. So I now have Mountain Lion installed on the machine, so I'm going to go ahead and boot it up and I'll show you that right now. Alright, so let's just go ahead and wait for the machine to boot. As I said, this is running Mountain Lion now, version 10.8.5, fully updated of course. So let's just wait till it boots up. It doesn't take too long to boot actually, so it should boot up in a couple seconds here. I guess it doesn't boot up too quick, but there it goes. It's just about to go to the login screen now. I'll go ahead and type in my password. And as you can see, we are now in Mountain Lion. And even though it only has 2 gigs of RAM, Mountain Lion still runs like really well on the machine. Just go into Activity Monitor here. Oh, and the trackpad actually supports the multi-touch gestures, so that's pretty cool. I believe the MacBook Air, or I guess, I'm not really sure what the first machine to support the multi-touch was, but I'm pretty sure it was first advertised on the MacBook Air, if I'm not mistaken. But you can see that, let's go into system memory, that when nothing's running, about half of the 2 gigs of RAM is used. And even though it's a very low amount of RAM for today's standards, it still works perfectly fine. So yeah, the system runs, as I said, perfectly. So let's just go ahead and do About This Mac. You can see that System Profiler detects it as a mid-2009 MacBook Air. And of course, the 1.86 GHz Core 2 Duo processor, 2 gigs of 1067 MHz DDR3 memory, which is of course soldered on and unupgradable, and the nVidia GeForce 9400M graphics card. So yeah, for what it is, I think I got a pretty good deal on the system, and yeah, I think it was a pretty successful repair. So I'll just go ahead and shut it down, and yeah. So yeah, that was the repair of a mid-2009 Apple MacBook Air. Hope you enjoyed this video.